We moved to Lancaster in 2008. Lee and I were both raised Catholic and knew we wanted to maybe do something different, and went to St. James, and we enjoyed the service. And as we were leaving, we were recognized as somebody new, so Kathy Sabino grabbed us both by the shoulders and pushed us out the door to meet Father David, basically, and had a great encounter with him. And he seemed very welcoming and supportive, and it seemed sort of instantly like this was a place we could be happy. And also, I would say we liked St. James because it was a fairly large church, and we figured we could be anonymous and just sort of slip in and out and not have to do very much, and that didn't work out well. But we're very glad nonetheless that we're here.
And just adding to what Greg said, I think what made us so noticeable is that I was about 100 months pregnant, and because we were having a baby, we wanted her, who we didn't know would be a her, to grow up with a foundation similar to what Greg and I had as children. Having that spiritual foundation was important to us to give to Holly.
One of the things I really love about St. James is the Saturday night service and the contemporary music. I love pop culture, and so I love sort of bringing that into the church space, and then, mentioning to Father Rob that we ought to do a Pearl Jam Mass, and him saying yeah, and you should do the preaching. And I said, what? And then somehow there I was preaching at a Pearl Jam Mass.
Hey, oh, I'm feeling like guitar.
When was the last time we prayed to God not to ask for anything for ourselves or for loved ones, but instead simply to say thanks for all that we do have? Meister Eckhart, the 14th century German theologian, once observed that if the only prayer we ever said was thank you, that would be enough.
Somewhere along the way I was on vestry. I don't know how that happened. And anyway, but it's been a sort of whirlwind of things, and I've loved everything. Lee asked if I was going to miss being on vestry. I'm finishing up my 4th year, which is an extra year for a typical term. And much to my surprise, I said, yeah, I think I will. It's been really great to be part of these conversations, and I grumble sometimes about how long the meetings go. It's exciting time to be here, a little scary, but exciting with what the future holds and big decisions.
Holly, can you think of some times in your life when God has really helped you out?
When I am in school, there is, constant pressure to do good, do well, get this done, get it right, get it perfect. And I am grateful that I have been able to get through, and I think that all of that is with God's help. Last year, there was an election for safety patrols, and that was the thing. If you were a safety patrol, you were kind of big deal. That was important to me to get that and be a big deal. So I needed God's help to prepare for not getting it or getting it and how to react. And when I found out that I had gotten the position, I was really grateful. But with God's help, I knew how to react. Because there were children around me who did not get the part, that was always kind of sad to see. So I know I felt like that sometimes, so I'm grateful for God helping me through being a student and all those hard math tests.
You've been to a lot of church retreats and camps at St. James. Do you have any favorite memories?
One year we got to hold and pet a skunk, and that was so cool. And there were some lizards that were not as cool. So I've done a lot of fun things, and I think the church, something they do well is having stuff for kids to do to stay occupied, because that is a problem with kids. They just kind of get antsy. One of my favorite things to do in camp was when we got to have stories with Miss Alyssa, and those were times when I would choose to play with the sand. So I think it helped me to have something to work with my hands, to be able to learn that. That is how I will learn a lot of times, if I have something hands-on. In the sand, we would have figures that we would move, and sometimes you could put in carpets that would look like a lake, and we had mountains, and it was just kind of fun moving everybody and acting out the story, but learning it at the same time and having fun.
Lee, tell us about how you ended up leading the Anchorage Breakfast Program and what that experience was like.
I don't know how David came to the idea to invite me to work with the Anchorage Breakfast Program, but he was looking for someone to take over that ministry on a purely volunteer basis, which worked beautifully for our family because Holly was 1.5, and I wasn't looking for anything significant at that time, but I was looking for something to keep me grown up instead of being at home all day with a wonderful 1.5-year-old. So I leapt at that opportunity. We would always serve a very special breakfast on Christmas morning, ham and eggs and bacon and all. It was a big deal and something that the volunteers worked really hard at to provide a really beautiful meal for the Anchorage guests. And it became, for those couple of years that I was involved, a tradition for us. We would get up and we would open up our stockings and pack ourselves up and drive over to church and spend an hour or so in communion with these guests that had possibly nowhere else to be. And I remember sitting at a table with a couple other people enjoying a breakfast, talking with people that we wouldn't normally get to know or get to talk to. And I think sharing that with Holly especially was really moving and really important to my faith development as well as hers, because at such an early age she was seeing that it was so much more than Santa Claus. And it was about being together with family, making sure that everyone was welcome at that table. And I'm super thankful that I had that opportunity.
Greg, what has the last 10 years at St. James meant to your faith journey?
To imagine myself 12 years ago and said, you're going to be a lector and a Eucharistic minister, you're going to be on the vestry. I wouldn't have known what that word was. But all of these things would have seemed an impossibility to me. I would have laughed at you. And obviously this place that has gotten me more engaged and involved than I ever thought I would be. And I think it's because here's a place that encourages us to open our hearts and find the Spirit in everyday life, find it in popular music, find it in the practices we do with our neighbors. And I think those things are, important to me. And I do make those connections at my work now. I think about, what do I do as a historian? Why do I teach? And my big goal has always been to teach empathy, to teach people to be more aware of the other people in their lives, both in the past and then hopefully they take that into the present. That act of sort of being empathetic, I think, is something that comes out of my spirituality, that comes out of a growing awareness of our place in the world that God has made for us.